Now if I draw, I have to be standing straight in front, and I might be encouraging the front of the ellipse to be stronger. I'm pushing harder on the front and not so strongly on the back. Of course, I can get my eraser and I can eliminate that back line if I wish. Now as these lines come down, they're joining the ellipse very softly. And as we're drawing towards the front of our bottle, we're tilting our pencil to the tip, to the point, and that just strengthens that line so that this is closest towards us. We still need to draw our shadow shape. And in this case, I'm going to draw it very lightly. Pencil on its side. Now this is an F pencil, quite a light pencil. If I bump that up to a 4B, a much softer and darker pencil, we'll see that our mark making, that density of tone, starts becoming greater, and I'll encourage all of the ellipses to be stronger at the front. So as we're going in close, we're seeing more detail, but we try and avoid the detail as we start. We're seeing our form being soft, and then as we go closer in, we're seeing more things to draw. That might encourage us to, as you see me now, turn the pencil around and or really get in close and try and see some of those strong darks. So our very light bottle starts being able to be strengthened with our softer pencil. And that strength we put on is much easier when we know where to draw, by having that light underdrawing. In this situation, we're trying to really encourage volume. Some areas again will be kept still light, and you can see on our bottle form that it gets quite dark. So this is me really pushing my 4B now. And if it goes past that round, we can just take that and clean that. So we're after that our line comes down and seamlessly turns around into that arc. Turning to a new page, we're looking at the teapot now. The teapot presents a slightly more complex situation. There's some solids, and then there are some extras on top of those solids. So when we first approach drawing something like this, we're looking for the most basic version of it. In this case, it's almost a circle that tapers. What we're trying to do is give ourselves as basic a model of that teapot on which to draw our details. So we start firstly with a straight line. Our teapot in this case is quite circular, and the judgment is how open is that circle? How open is that ellipse? We're seeing our lid on top of, like so. Now this extra circle that I drew to start with is something we can lose. We can make that nice arc, fresh arc, like so. We're drawing the basic geometry minus any of the forms that get in the way. It will be quite difficult to draw this around the spout, in other words. When we see our forms, we notice there's an axis. So in this case, we've got an axis this way, but our handle, our lid, and our spout are all on an axis. So we put that in. We put in perhaps an extra line that joins up handles and spout. Just lightly, and with the side of our pencil again, we have to judge some things. We can see how far out that sticks. We're looking at it as a cylinder. I think I may have drawn too far out. That's a better line. So kept at that light stage, it's easy to correct any mistakes you make. We're keeping in store our darker marks until we really need to emphasize some things, to put some detail on there, to tell our viewers looking at our drawing where things are scrunched together and strong and where they weight down on the table. We don't want our pot to lift off and float away. By doing, as we spoke before, with the cylinders and the other forms, we pushed some tone underneath, and that made our form sit down. We also put in a circle of shadow that encouraged the idea of distance across. So in other words, our form had volume because of that distance. And in this situation, I'll just make that slightly darker as it comes out from there. These ellipses could get darker. In other words, your pencil could get slightly more pointed. But we'll leave those details until we've got all of the form down on the page. Our handle sits on two carriers, and again, quite lightly placed on. So we take it step by step, and we're trying to build our form from a very strong foundation. Our handle requires a bit of thought. It's a circle with slightly longer arms. So what I'm going to do is try and draw again from my shoulder. I've got my arm locked and I'm drawing from back up here. And that enables my marks to be very lightly put on, but nice and fresh. And we see that there are more details to draw, but initially we're trying to find the arc of this very nice handle. Once we have established where to start putting our detail, the next phase is to really get in close and start to put some emphasis and some strength of mark making onto this drawing. Don't forget that you can bring your eraser in at any point here and clean up an edge. If your initial marks in searching for the right line weren't correct, then your eraser can clean up those edges. So your drawing is quite a searching process. We're looking for how things fit together. Drawing really makes you understand things from the inside out. As soon as we've got closer, and that will take a little bit of time, it's a good point to spend time at. You can understand that our 2B pencil is going to be not dark enough to really capture some of that strength that you're after. So we can take our 2B pencil, it's on its side, it's one strength. As soon as we turn it round, as soon as we get in close, you can see that my pencil makes a stronger mark, it makes a darker mark. However, that still is yet not as dark as some of the darks that we have out in front of us. So it's at this point you spend some time. What we do not want to do is try these details without any of that general and really soft underbody of the drawing taking place first. I'm going to erase my previous searchings, possibly strengthen or re-strengthen some of those marks. So again, keeping the darker mark on the underside of a form, so that your darker mark in this case is going to be on that inside, so that the light feels like it's falling on the outer side of the form. So just before we finish on this drawing, I'd be placing on quite a bit more detail and trying to step back and see if anything needs really adjusting. I might actually be tempted to push a little bit more strength into this shaded ellipse. You could take out at this point that vertical very first mark we made. So anything you can do at this point is not so much the bigger picture, it's the smaller details, it's the cleaning up of things, it's the strengthening of things. You're adjusting some of the density of the marks rather than creating new marks. So if you've made a mistake, it's at that very early stage you adjust that mistake. You don't want to carry the mistake all the way through the drawing, it's a good point. If you've got your big flowing lines, they're going to take a little bit of searching to get them, and that might mean they need to be cleaned up. If you're going into your very small detail, they might need to be searched through. There's often more detail than you'd imagine on some forms. It's not bad to actually go over and have a look at actually what you're been drawing all this time, especially if you're in a classroom or in any situation where you're a few meters back. So now I've looked at some of the basics. The idea is that you draw and draw and draw. You take one of these forms or a number of these forms and you draw several pages of them. It's not good to spend an hour on one bottle. At the beginning, it's good just to get the feel of standing up at your easel, to hold your pencil like so, and to step back and so on and keep engaging with your drawing. That might take a number of pages of just drawing the one form and really try and understand what it is you're seeing in 3 dimensions and in transparency. So grab some pencils and paper and enjoy yourselves.